right? So we did the first ois, in which he described briefly Chochmah and Bina, then went into Das. And he explained the importance of Das, that Das serves a purpose of its own. That was as a third level of Seichel is called Das. And then also there's a function of Das in conjunction. It goes what together, while the other two koiches are prasin, Chochmah and Bina. Das joins, connects the Bina to the Chochmah. That's also part of Das. And we tried as much as possible to illustrate, to give us a feel for this union. How Das connects the Bina and the Chochmah. In brief, the union of Das, the union means the ultimate effect of Das is that this which we know is not a separate knowledge from ourselves, but it's something that connects, that relates to us, and we relate to it. It becomes part of us. Okay? And to illustrate this in simple terms, we also said that when a person eats a piece of bread, even in his mouth, is not going to feed him. It has to become part of him. Something has to allow, connect, to integrate the bread that comes from outside to his whole physique and to his blood system. In Ruchnius, in Koiches HaNefesh, in Seichel, this is the function of Das. And therefore it functions at all times. Just like in the case of food, there is the food, but then there is also the taste. And the taste is that moment, that foreground, that boundary that says, I accept it or I reject it. It's already speaking from the perspective of the body. You understand? If it's a taste that the body rejects, then you're more not going to eat the food. So in other words, just to connect the two, the food and the body, just to connect them, already there is judgment. You don't eat food and then see whether it's good. It goes along all the time. And then, of course, the very final moment, as we're going to learn the next thing, the very final thing is when the food gets broken up into such fine particles that you can't even tell the difference, the separate difference between the food that came from outside and the body itself and the bloodstream. This is where they integrate completely, and the food becomes part of the bloodstream and gives sustenance and strength. You understand, right? So this is the Moyach HaDas. Okay, so we're going further. V'hinei. Lihyois the Moyach HaDas. Being that. Lihyois means being that. The Moyach HaDas, Hinei, Levad zois, besides the fact, shemakasher hamoichin chochmo bino atzmon, besides the fact that Moyach Hadas connects chochmo bino to each other, this is the function of Moyach Hadas, how it affects chochmo and bino. It helps chochma and bina to function together. It brings bina to the chochma to examine it and figure out all that is contained in the chochma. In addition to that, hine hu hamevarer. So, in addition to that, the Meir Hadas is the one hamevarer that clarifies. Birur means clarification or distinguish. Umachalek as hoinyonim, and it separates the aspects should be nekudas hahaskola that are contained in the point of the concept. Umafridom zeh mizeh, and he separates them one from the other.
Mechalik itself also separates.
Right. Mechalik, Umafridom is, Mechalik means it identifies them separately. Mechalik, it shows different parts. And Mafridom is where he keeps them apart. He keeps them separate. Shelo yisarvu, that they should not mix together. Let me finish another 2 lines, and then we'll discuss it a little bit. So Moyach Hadas also causes the clarification and distinction of the various aspects that are contained in the Haskalah, in the Seichel, in the concept. And he keeps them apart, all the various insights of various parts of it. Shelo yisarvu, that they should not come and get mixed up again. Umevarer, umechalek, and it clarifies and separates, subdivides as gam as inyonei hahasoges. Not only the nekuda means the point, the central point of the concept, but inyonei hahasoga, the other inyonim that can be comprehended, that's in being already. I know hasvoros, which means the svara is the reasoning, hamavarim umasbirim, that explain as in yonei ha'anekuda, that explain the inyonim of the point. Like we said all along, I said there's chokhmah and bina. Bina explains what is contained in the chokhmah, all the aspects, all the svaras that go in, and das clarifies it and puts each thing separately. And then it connects the nekudas, the point, and the explanations together. So, if we read this over here, he said actually 3 things. The 3 things are, there is chokhmah, then there is bina, and then there is the connection between them. And Das has a part in each one of these. In Chokhmah, Das identifies the various parts of the Chokhmah, the Nakuda. In Bina, again the same thing. Das helps to separate the various explanations that come from Bina. And the third thing is that Das then brings them together and shows how the explanations in Bina explain the Nakuda, explain the point of the Seichel. The connecting it back, correlating the explanations of Bina to the Nakuda of the Chokh. I want to use a simple illustration, a simple mashal that would give us a handle of what we just now learned. When we take, let us for instance look at the watch. So, somebody who approaches this very superficially says, oh, watch is a simple thing. It has a couple of handles, and it shows the hour and the minutes and the seconds. However, then he asks himself the question, look, the two handles and the three handles are all attached to the same central point, right? To the same center. How is it that one shows us the seconds, one shows the minutes, one shows the hours? So therefore, it tells him that in this one little point over there are actually three separate pivots, three separate bases. It's not one thing. Okay? Once he identifies this, then he can go in and understand how does it actually work. Why does one move so fast, one slower, and one yet slower? And how does it all set up that it should be exactly an hour, exactly a minute, and exactly a second? Okay. In each one of these stages, there is this this das that plays a role. What is this das? A child who does not have das would not even notice that there are three separate things in there, pivots, because in fact it looks like one. How does one notice it? One pays attention with his seichel and says, Oh, well, there are three because there are three handles. So when it comes to examine it on the real level, it really works. Then it begins to separate what is this center consist of? How many little pieces are there? Otherwise it looks like there is one. And this is where, comparable to what it says over here, that Das, by paying attention, Das we said before is his kashrus. By paying attention closely to what I see, all of a sudden I notice that actually there are three rather than one. This still does not explain how it works. For this you have to open the watch and see how it actually works. How does it actually work? Okay, everybody knows simple, basic principles, right? That there are three separate wheels that depend on one another. One is larger, one is smaller, one is yet smaller. So when the larger one turns around a whole circle, the smaller one turns around two circles, or for that matter, 60 circles. And the yet smaller one turns around 5,000 seconds. How many seconds are there in an hour? Okay? So this Indian, that there are three circles, three sizes, and they work one against the other. And the same apparatus, you know, the same force that makes them all move at the same time, interdependently. And this is how it becomes accurate time. This is already in Bina. This is already the svaras that explain how this works. Okay. After that all is understood, then you need again Das, and says that all of these pieces and all of these details, because each reasoning, each svara, each idea is true unto itself. You need Das to correlate, to connect all of them together and explain how all of these different parts that are on this watch, they all work together for one purpose, to give accurate time. And basically, what is the end result of this? The end result is that we're not interested in all these circles that are inside. We're not even interested in what makes them move. We're interested in the fact that we have accurate time. It comes back to the point. Now, if somebody opens a watch and he sees a whole bunch of little circles, and a whole bunch of little circles, and he'll understand what each one does. In order to put everything in perspective and define each circle separately and say how this one works, how this one works, how this one works. For this, you need also Me'er Hadas. You have to pay attention to what you're saying. It's not enough that you have the argument, you have the idea. You have to pay personal attention to it to show how each thing is really a separate thing. This is called birur and mechalik. This birur and mechalik is also the result of das. Because das not only sees the whole thing, but it actually relates to the whole thing in its details. It relates to the whole thing with all its details. And that's how it gets to feel all the parts of it. Now, if a person were to make a decision whether, let's say, which watch to buy. I'm talking about somebody who wants to go inside and give me such a, so to speak, a hypothetical illustration. If he's capable of understanding of how the apparatus works, he would study them, and he would see how each one is designed, how each one works. And when after that he gets a good feel of how they work, he will have a sense of which one is reliable, which one is really simple and solid, and which one is something that you can't trust, you can't rely on it. Cannot. Okay, so this is what we say here. He says, lozois. You see that lozois? Because that das also identifies all the parts in the seichel. Because of that, the principal decision, hachlota means decision, conclusion of everything. The fourth line, the end of the fourth line. The main decision and conclusion of everything. V'chol inyan sichli, and any seicheldike, any intelligent decision, hu alidei hadas dafka. It is exclusively through the process of das. Das is what allows a person to make a decision. This is going to go now to explain this in detail. And as we can actually see and observe, bemuchosh means we can sense it, we can actually experience it. Bahaskola, in in the realm of intelligence, of understanding. Im heyois, where even if shemasik as inyan, even if one understands a certain inyan, shehu kach, that it is such and such, shehu kach means that is so and so. Mikol mokoim, still einoi muchroch, that is not compelling. Anybody knows what compelling means? Compelling means it doesn't force. Einoi muchroch, it's not compelling. Sheyuchlat etzloi ho'inyan, that this inyan should come to a conclusion and he should decide like this. V'yochol lehishtanis, and it's possible for it to change. One moment he thinks like this, and the other moment he thinks differently. Before das. V'ali hadas, but then through the process of das, hu hachlotas ho'inyan. This is where he comes to the point of hachlotas ho'inyan, of concluding the inyan. In last week's Parsha, should you learn Rashi, Parsha and Rashi, right? In last week's Parsha, it says that there were, how much silver was there? How much silver? It was 100 kikar and 1,000 shkolim, and sheshman, 1,600 and some odd shkolim. Okay, this is what they call. And it says in the Torah, how did they get this number of silver, this amount of silver? This is from the count of Eden. Bekalagul goyles, because it was half a shekel for each person, and there were 600,000. 600,000 and 603,550 or whatever it was, and that adds up to the number of shkolim, and therefore it ends up to this kikor. Okay. Right, that's what it says in the Parsha. If you take a look in Rashi does not simply go and says there were 600,000 Eden, and take that total number and divide it by 2, and that gives you the number of shkolim, and divide that by 3,000, that gives you the number of kikor. Rashi takes each number separately. It says 600,000 half shekels gives you 300,000 full shekels. And then Rashi goes on the 1,000 half shekels, another 500. Each one, he breaks it up separately. And this shows clearly how we got this sum of silver, this amount of silver. So, and this recurs, this happens very often in Rashi, in Gemara, very often, that instead of going a simple arithmetic calculation, he goes and he breaks it up into strips, into pieces. Like you take the Choser HaMishkan, you'll come across many times this in the Torah. What's the point? If you go through this Rashi, it's a simple Rashi, it's not a very difficult Rashi. If you go through this Rashi, you will see that even though you could very easily calculate that the 600,000 will end up in this amount of silver, but then you will know that it's another thing because you have proof of it, but you won't have a feel for it. When you go through, in the way Rashi puts it, you have an actual feel for it. It's like as if you measured each piece. You actually touched each shekel, and you have a feel for the reality of it. In other words, this is essentially the difference between knowing something at the level of Chochmah and Bina and knowing something at the level of Das. The level of Chochmah and Bina, I have proof, I have reason, proof that this is the way it is, but I haven't touched it. And for a person to make a decision on the basis of proof and reason and all that is difficult because he can connect to it. Even if he has a clear proof to it, he can connect to it. When you go the next step and you actually touch it and get in there, then it becomes a reality. And then you can really make a decision. This is what he says over here. That Chochmah and Bina gives you all the explanations and all. But the Hachlota comes from Das. When you actually get into the nitty-gritty, into all the details, you examine and you feel each detail, then all of a sudden it becomes a real thing. And you can make a decision. Because you're really in it. Bina does not get involved in the object itself. He gets involved in explanations of the object, in the svaras, in the proofs. And as far as the proof is concerned, it's enough to say that if you take the total number of Eden, 603,550, divide that by half. So you have, divide that by half. You know what they do in a formula, right? Divide it by half and then divide it by 3,000, and you have your kikos.
So, being able to get to this far without necessarily examining each detail as stands on its own.
Right. So then you know it, you have proof that it's like that, but you haven't actually experienced it. Not having experienced it and felt it, it's still something that you know from a distance, not something that you yourself felt. Just like if somebody gives you directions. Somebody gives you directions how to go to a place. And he describes to you every street, everything. It's up to you every detail. And then you go, and you know how to go there, and you go and you find a way. But after you went and you found it, you know it incomparably better than when you knew it before you went there. What happened? You went exactly the route that he told you. So what happened now that now it becomes clear and now you have a feel for the various turns and the various stops. You've gone through it. It's not just count 3 streets or go a half a mile. There's an actual route, an a reality to it. Completely different thing. Okay, so now we'll see inside what he says. Alidei hadas hu hachlotas o inyan. Through the das is the decision and the conclusion of the inyan. Mipnei, and that is because shehadas ein loirag hasogas o inyan. The das is not only, merely, just the understanding of the inyan. Ki'im, but more than that, Hahargosha, the feel, the sense, Shemargish, that he feels Shehu Inyan Ukach. That Inyan is like that. He actually experienced it. He actually feels that this is how it is. Not that he knows that this is it. And to make a decision, it's not enough for a person to know, he has to feel it. And Das provides with that, with that next step, the final step. And then as a result of that comes the hachlota. As a result of that comes the hachlota, because now he actually relates to the inyan, to the concept, directly, not from a distance. Okay. And how does he get this hargosha? How does he get this feel? That is because he actually identified and related to all the details, all the parts that are in it. Identified means recognized. How do you say identified?
The identity of something.
No. We need Paruski. Huh? You have it? Huh? Uznaya, right. Uznaya. Recognize, identify. Right. For those of you who learn the Rambam, you learn the Rambam, the halachas, or the mitzvahs? Sorry? The mitzvahs, right. The Rambam, in addition to the fact that he has the whole Torah, but he was not lazy. He didn't cut corners. He really presented it with all its details. And when he says, for instance, there are so many averas for which a person gets chorus, let's say, the punishment of chorus. He gives you a number, and he goes through each thing. He doesn't give you, he can give you a klal. You know what a klal is? A rule, that everything that goes into this category has this punishment. No. He gives each thing individually. And then, in the beginning and the end, he gives a sum total. If you count it over, you'll see that this is what you have. In each thing, But the Rama presents, he presents all the details and the details and the sum total and the whole, so that you have a feel for the whole thing. Okay. So this is one explanation why we say that the hachloto, the decision of the decision comes as a result of das, not a result of chokhmah and bina. Because chokhmah and bina, you're still at a distance. You can't make a decision on that. And then it says further, ubi yoiser, and even more, hi ha'achloto, and the hachloto comes even more. There is decision is the result, even more than that, than the fact that he has a feel for it, comes alidei hakoras ho'inyan shebemoyach hadas. There is another aspect in Moyach Hadas, and that is called Hakoras Ho'inyan. Hakoras means to recognize. To recognize. So I want to explain to you about recognition for a moment. Every person, there are not two people that are exactly alike. Whether it's in height, or the facial appearance, or how they stand, how they walk. Everyone has their different, has a different presentation, very different. Even though all people are exactly alike in one respect. This is one of the big miracles that the Rebbe has in the world, that you have all people that actually look exactly alike, and none of them are alike. And they're so different that it doesn't take a second to recognize a person. Except in identical twins, it takes time to get used to it. But generally, it doesn't take a second. Now, when you recognize a person, let's say you see a person at a distance at night, there's some light, and you see him from his back. You say, oh, this walk, this stance, this looks like, oh, it must be this person. And you have reason, you have raya, so to speak, arguments that say, oh, it must be him. No matter how clearly you can prove it, you cannot be 100% sure. Can I be 100% sure? When you see a person by face, you're not 100% sure. It's not a question that you're sure. This is him. It's beyond surety. This is it. Surety applies only in the case where you find something out through some kind of a process, and you're sure that the process is correct. But when you see the person, you know that this is him not through a process, not because, oh, he's got glasses and he's got a gray beard and he's got this, oh, that must be him. Nothing at all. You know that this is him. Directly. This is called Hakora. Hakora means recognize. Recognition of a person. That goes beyond anything. It's not even based on reason. In Seichel, there is also there are also these various steps. There is the step where you have an idea what it is, what the Inyan is. Then there's a step where you have actually understood the Inyan, and you have proof and supporting argument that this is how it is. And throughout this whole process, you only know it through proofs. You don't know the thing directly. When do you have to get to know the thing directly? That is in Moyach HaDas. That's a completely different level. This is where you recognize, when you directly relate to it, you recognize this is how it is. We'll come back to this Hakora. This is a very rich Inyan, but I just want to finish inside the whole Inyan, then come back to it and discuss it a little more. So he says that the Yoser HaChlota, that even more, principally the HaChlota comes al idei Hakora so Inyan shebemoyach hadas, by the recognition that takes place in the Moyach hadas. Now, why is the recognition in Moyach HaDas? So, I'd like you to listen very carefully. In Seichel, when a person thinks of something, and you say, oh, this is how it must be, underlying the seichel, underlying the idea, is a reason. Why must it be this way? There's a reason for it. Now, in any situation, just like we discussed in recognizing a person, when you know something, not directly, but by reason, by knowing something else, and that proves to you that this is like this, you're not 100. You don't have a direct knowledge of it. Like by a person, I know that this is this person because he's 6 feet tall, and he looks like he's 150 pounds, and he looks like he has the glasses that I remember. That's not Hakora. This is all knowing that this is him as a result of some other external proofs. This external proof method is in Seichel. Seichel is always based on some reason. Why do you say that? Oh, I say it because of this. Why do you say it? Because of this. So this reason is what supports your idea. Anything that's supported by reason means that you don't have the idea directly. You know it only as a result of reason. So although reason is a very powerful tool, very important thing, it's the way to get to know something, but that's not the end of the road. That's not the last level of knowledge. After that, you go through reason, and you go through the entire process. It goes into the madrega called das, and in das you actually get to recognize. Like you come to a point and say, how come I haven't doubted? Of course, I know this is like this. Did you ever have that experience? When somebody is trying to explain to you something, and you explain to yourself, and you go back and forth, and then it strikes you, you say, oh, of course, I always knew it. I mean, you always knew it. Just a moment ago, you were arguing with me. Because when you were involved in the reasoning, you were arguing. But then, after the idea was brought home and you know what you're talking about, you say, of course, I always knew it. Always knowing means that the hakara, you recognize that which you knew yesterday. And you come back to meet the same person again, which whom you met yesterday. In Seichel, there is such a madrega, such a function, such a level of clarity that's called das. Clarity means clear. Huh? Yeah. There's such a level of clarity, of pure seeing, that this is the way it is. I don't need any proofs anymore. This is the way it is. Just like I don't need proofs to know that this is this person. Okay. So the Rebbe says like this: Hakora so inyan sheb'meya hadas. The recognition of the inyan that is in this moya hadas. Shezehu l'maylo mehargosha so inyan. The recognition is higher, which means it is even clearer and on a higher level than hargosha so inyan, than the feel for the inyan that we discussed before. Like you go through every part of it and you feel it and you actually experience it. Hakora so inyan, to recognize, is higher than hargosha so inyan. V'hainu, and the Rebbe explains, what do we mean to say that it's higher? It means to say, shehu yoiser begilui me behargosha. That when you have hakora, when you have recognition, then the inyan, the seichel, the idea is more revealed, and you recognize it. It is brighter, it is clearer than in hargosha, than in feel. He goes on to explain. Ki hargosha yichelo liyois. Hargosha, feel, is possible to be kam behelam. It's possible to feel behelam. What does behelam mean? Even if the inyan itself is concealed. In other words, you have a feel for it, but you don't really know why you feel that way. You don't really know all the supporting evidence. Kumoy leiv margish. Hargosha is possible also in leiv margish. Leiv margish means like the heart feels. The heart's field. You see that's in Yiddish Rebbe translates? The heart's field. The heart feels. So when you have the heart feels, that's not real knowledge. Aval hu behelim, but the inyan remains concealed. Shemargish dover she'eino yodeya. He feels for something that he does not really know. What's mean leiv margish? The heart feels. Let's say if somebody put you in the middle of Brooklyn someplace and you don't know where you are, you don't know which way to go if you want to go back to Crown Heights. You don't know your way around. If you are in general familiar with Brooklyn, in general, you can have a feel. I feel that it should be in that direction. It should be over there. But that feeling, it means that you really know the whereabouts of the city, that you should have such a feeling. But you don't really know. You don't really know how this direction is going to bring you there. You have a feel that this is what it is. So Hargosha, the feel, does not prove that you really know. So we said like this: in Das there is Hargosha. The Hargosha that's in Das is real Hargosha. In other words, this comes after the Seichel. It's a Hargosha that comes after that one has already broken everything down and he went through all the details and he feels it. He actually feels it, like we said before in the counting. But this Hargosha itself is not limited that it should be in the Das, that it should be in the Seichel. Therefore, Hargosha does not demand, does not mean, does not force that it should be known. It could be you have a feel without knowing. So Hargosha, the point is this: the Hargosha of Das, we have to understand, is a real Hargosha, meaning that it comes with knowledge. But Hargosha per se, by itself, is not necessarily with knowledge. It could be without knowledge. Since Hargosha could be without knowledge, that means that in Hargosha, you are not really connecting to the Inyan. Because if you're connecting, you would know the Inyan. Like, I have a feel for it. I have a feel. You haven't gone through all the details and know it.
Real connection is over the chorus, right?
The Hakora, we have two more lines and then we have the whole thing. Ukmoi came beseichel. The same thing is in Seichel. The Hargosha so inyan, when one feels the inyan, ein etzem ho inyan etzloi behargosha mamash. Ein means it's not. Etzem ho inyan, the thing itself, is not in true feel. He doesn't really feel it. He doesn't really touch the inyan itself. He knows that it's like this, but he does not really feel the essence of it. The Hakora zo inyan, but when you have Hakora, the recognition, hu she'etzem ho inyan etzle begili. This is where the essence is begili. Like we explained before, you can have a feel that this is this person. It doesn't compare to when you say, I recognize him. When you recognize him, it's all revealed. You recognize all the aspects of it, of the person. When you recognize a person, you don't recognize his face. With the face, you recognize his whole personality, everything that you know about him. You recognize in this person, in this one instant. This is where you're actually connecting to the whole person, the etzem, the whole person. In Hargosha, you don't connect to the etzem. You know that this is how it is, but you don't have the feel for the essence.
Is it also called feeling if you do know the essence of the ending? It's just like you could feel it, but not know the essence of the ending.
Right. You could
also feel it.
You could feel it without knowing the essence.
Yeah.
If you know the essence, that's called Hakor.
Okay.
Different. You actually connect to the essence. Let us take the time is up. Let's take a very simple illustration when it comes to making a decision. There are 10 different ways to go from here to Crown Heights. Right? All kinds of different ways. You go out and say, I'm going to go this way. Why? I feel like going this way. I can relate to it this time. I relate to it. I feel comfortable going this way. That feeling is a real feeling. In other words, you feel comfortable going this way. Sometimes a person feels like going through city streets. Sometimes you feel like going on a highway. On a highway, you know. It's not a reason because this way is faster or slower. It's not. It's just I have a feel that I relate to this better. So in this feeling, he actually has a feel for it, but it's not the reality of it. So when the person makes a decision, says, I'm going to go this way. If somebody tells him, if you go this way, you're going to go most of your way on a highway. If you go this way, you're going to go most of your way in the city streets. If you go this way, it's going to be half this way and half this way. Okay. He says, I don't know what you're talking about. Tell me which way is best to go. I don't know what's the difference. But after he went through all the 3 different ways, then he says, no, I prefer this way. I like this route. Because now he actually has a personal relationship to this route. So when a decision is made, it's not made necessarily on arguments. See, this is the important thing to understand. A decision is made not necessarily on the basis of reason and arguments. Could be unreason, could be exactly identical things. But this is something which I relate to. That's a real decision. We're talking about a decision, on significant things, not which way to drive. Just give you an example. Significant things. Where a person feels, recognizes, this is for me, this is the real thing. That decision is not made on the basis of reason, it's made on the basis of actual personal relationship, personal recognition.
You said if you base something, if you're going completely on reason and logic, like you can't come to a decision. Can you say that?
Right, I said that. You can come to a decision, but it's not a decision. It's by default, decision by default. Mm-hmm. Meaning, you have to do something, so you do this. A decision means that it's a proactive decision. This is my decision. This is the direction I go. That is made only after one actually relates to. Important decisions one has to make in this way. Okay, gentlemen, this is where we're up to today. So we are digging in further into Mechadas and how decisions are made.
Well, they have time today.
Huh?